The year 1942 marked a turning point in World War II. The Axis powers, after early victories, faced a series of crushing defeats. These battles shifted the momentum of the war. The Allies gained the upper hand. From the frozen Eastern Front to the scorching deserts of North Africa, the tide of war began to turn. The Battle of Stalingrad, a brutal clash of wills, crippled the German army. In North Africa, the Battle of El Alamein halted Rommel's advance. The Battle of Midway, a decisive naval clash, shattered Japan's dominance in the Pacific. These battles were more than just military engagements. They represented a turning point in the global conflict. The world watched as the seemingly invincible Axis forces faltered. Hope flickered for the Allied nations. Victory, though still far off, seemed attainable. The Eastern Front of World War II was a battleground of unparalleled brutality. It was a clash not just of armies, but of ideologies. Nazi Germany, driven by Hitler's vision of a thousand-year Reich, sought to conquer the Soviet Union. The Soviets, under Stalin's iron rule, fought with the desperation of a people defending their homeland. Operation Barbarossa, the German invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, initially caught the Soviets off guard. German forces advanced rapidly, capturing vast swaths of territory. But the Soviets, fueled by patriotism and a deep-seated hatred of the invaders, mounted a fierce resistance. The Battle of Moscow, fought in the bitter cold of winter, marked the first major setback for the German army. The Soviets, accustomed to the harsh conditions, launched a counteroffensive that drove the Germans back. The myth of German invincibility was shattered. In the summer of 1942, Hitler turned his attention to the strategic city of Stalingrad. Capturing the city, named after Stalin himself, would be a symbolic victory and provide Germany with control of vital oil fields. The battle for Stalingrad would become one of the most iconic and brutal engagements in human history. The German Sixth Army, under the command of General Friedrich Paulus, launched a massive assault on Stalingrad in August 1942. The Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, pounded the city with relentless bombing raids, reducing much of it to rubble. Soviet defenders, under the leadership of General Vasily Chuikov, fought tenaciously for every street and building. The battle raged for months, devolving into a brutal street fight. Snipers, hidden among the ruins, exacted a heavy toll on both sides. The Volga River, which flowed through the city, became a lifeline for the besieged Soviets, bringing in reinforcements and supplies under constant enemy fire.
The Battle of Stalingrad was as much a psychological war as it was a physical one. Both sides employed propaganda and terror tactics to demoralize the enemy. Snipers, masters of stealth and marksmanship, played a particularly chilling role in this psychological warfare. One of the most famous snipers of the battle was Vasily Zaitsev, a Soviet soldier whose exploits became legendary. Zaitsev, armed with a simple Mosin Nagant rifle, was credited with killing over 200 German soldiers. His skill and cunning instilled fear in the hearts of the enemy. The Germans too had their skilled snipers. One, known only as Erwin Koenig, was said to have been sent to Stalingrad specifically to duel with Zaitsev. Their duel, though likely exaggerated in accounts, became a symbol of the psychological battle raging within the city.
The psychological toll of the battle was immense, with both sides suffering from the constant threat of death from unseen enemies. The snipers of Stalingrad, like shadows in the ruins, turned the city into a haunting battleground of nerves and skill. Section 5. Winter's Bite. The Sixth Army's Demise. As the battle dragged on into the fall of 1942, a new enemy emerged, the brutal Russian winter. Temperatures plummeted, and the German army, ill-prepared for the harsh conditions, began to suffer from frostbite and hypothermia. Supplies dwindled, and morale plummeted. The Soviets, accustomed to the cold, launched a massive counteroffensive, Operation Uranus, in November 1942. Soviet forces encircled the German Sixth Army, trapping them within the city. Hitler, in a fatal miscalculation, refused to allow Paulus to break out of the encirclement. The German Sixth Army, starving and freezing, fought on for months, but their situation was hopeless. In February 1943, General Paulus surrendered the remnants of his army. The Battle of Stalingrad was over. The German army had suffered a catastrophic defeat. Section 6. echoes of ancient sieges, Troy to Leningrad. The Battle of Stalingrad, with its prolonged siege and brutal urban warfare, echoed ancient battles from history. Like Troy, besieged by the Greeks for 10 long years, Stalingrad became a symbol of resistance against overwhelming odds. The city's defenders, like the Trojans of old, fought with the courage of those defending their homes and families. The siege of Leningrad, another iconic battle of the Eastern Front, shared similarities with Stalingrad. Both cities endured months of relentless bombardment and starvation. Both witnessed the horrors of urban warfare and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable suffering. Stalingrad, like these ancient sieges, became a testament to the human cost of conflict. The battle left the city in ruins and claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians. It stands as a stark reminder of the brutality of war and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Section 7. The Sands of North Africa, El Alamein. While the Battle of Stalingrad raged in the east, another crucial campaign was unfolding in the deserts of North Africa. Here, the British Eighth Army, under the command of General Bernard Montgomery, faced off against the Afrika Korps, led by the legendary German general Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox. The North African campaign was a seesaw affair, with both sides winning victories and suffering defeats. Rommel, a brilliant tactician, had initially outmaneuvered the British, pushing them back into Egypt. But the tide began to turn at the First Battle of El Alamein in July 1942, where the British halted Rommel's advance. El Alamein, a small Egyptian coastal town, became a strategic choke point. Control of the town and the surrounding area was crucial for both sides. For the British, it was a line in the sand, the last defense of the Suez Canal, and the vital oil fields of the Middle East. For Rommel, it was a stepping stone to capturing Cairo and potentially knocking the British out of the war.
The Second Battle of El Alamein, fought in October 1942, was a clash of two of the war's most renowned generals, Bernard Montgomery and Erwin Rommel.
Montgomery, known for his meticulous planning and cautious approach, had spent weeks preparing his forces for the battle. Rommel, on the other hand, was a master of mobile warfare, known for his bold attacks and willingness to take risks. Montgomery, aware of Rommel's reputation for surprise attacks, had carefully fortified the British positions at El Alamein. He also enjoyed a significant advantage in men and material, thanks to reinforcements and supplies arriving from Britain and the United States.
Rommel, facing a superior enemy force, knew that he had to strike quickly and decisively. He launched a series of attacks on the British lines, but Montgomery, anticipating his moves, repulsed each assault. The battle raged for days, a brutal back-and-forth struggle in the scorching desert heat.
After days of fierce fighting, Montgomery launched his main offensive on November 2, 1942. British tanks and infantry, supported by overwhelming artillery fire, smashed through the German lines. Rommel, realizing that the battle was lost, ordered a retreat. The British pursued the retreating Afrika Korps across the desert, inflicting heavy casualties. By November 4th, the battle was over. The British had won a decisive victory, effectively ending Axis hopes of capturing Egypt and the Middle East. The Second Battle of El Alamein marked a turning point in the North African campaign. It shattered the myth of Rommel's invincibility and gave the Allies a much-needed morale boost. The victory paved the way for the eventual Allied liberation of North Africa.
While the battles of Stalingrad and El Alamein raged on land, a decisive naval battle took place in the Pacific Ocean, the Battle of Midway. This clash of aircraft carriers would prove to be a turning point in the Pacific War, ending Japan's string of victories and putting them on the defensive.
After their surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, the Japanese had enjoyed a string of victories in the Pacific. They had captured vast swaths of territory, including the Philippines, Singapore, and the Dutch East Indies. Their goal was to cripple the U.S. Pacific Fleet and establish a defensive perimeter in the Pacific.
Midway Atoll, a strategically important island in the Central Pacific, became the focal point of this struggle. The Japanese, under the command of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, planned to capture the island and use it as a base to launch further attacks on Hawaii and the U.S. West Coast.
The battles of Stalingrad, El Alamein, and Midway marked a turning point in World War II. The Axis powers, after experiencing early victories, suffered a series of decisive defeats. These setbacks blunted their offensive capabilities and shifted the momentum of the war in favor of the Allies. The road to victory was still long and arduous, but these battles, fought in the most brutal conditions imaginable, demonstrated the resilience and determination of the Allied forces. They also revealed the strategic miscalculations and overconfidence of the Axis leadership. The legacy of these battles extends beyond the realm of military history. They serve as a reminder of the human cost of conflict and the importance of international cooperation in the face of tyranny. The victories at Stalingrad, El Alamein, and Midway paved the way for a world order based on freedom and democracy.